Hey guys, before we start this episode, I wanted to talk to you about Type 1 Lifting. So Type 1 Lifting is a clothing line that proceeds of the shirts and tanks and everything else goes to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. So this all came about with me and seeing a 5-year-old girl in the emergency department that had new onset of diabetes. So just take a look at the website. It's www.type1lifting.com. So just check it out. If you don't buy anything, that's perfectly fine. I would just like for you just to take a look and just see what we have. So like I said before, www.type1lifting.com. And guys, I hope you enjoy the show. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I have a very exciting guest. His name is Erik Potempa. I think I messed up the last name. I apologize. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It's okay. Everybody gets my last name wrong. It's Potempa.
Potempa, yeah. I gotta write that down. So
don't even worry about it. But anyway, yeah, man, I'm really excited to be here. This is really cool. I don't know where to start. Basically, I'm a personal trainer. And I think what I do that's different maybe than other trainers is I've been doing this for like 20 years, and I found that consistency is obviously like the number one variable. Like you can do whatever you want, but if you don't do it consistently, you're not going to get results. And so I've kind of created an entire system of figuring out how to get people to show up so that they can get the results they want.
Very cool.
And a lot of that has to do with figuring out what inspires and motivates people. And that's why my brand is called Inspired Exercise NYC. I live in New York City. And that's basically what I do in a really condensed nutshell.
Very cool. So what made you get into the personal training field?
So I was in college, right? I played basketball and I was an athlete for most of my life. Like my dad is a big sports fanatic, and so I was like given a baseball glove when I was very, very young. And I played basketball, baseball, football. I even played golf. Like I would do anything basically. And the only thing is I really didn't like the training aspects. And so I sort of avoided it. Like whenever we would do weightlifting and stuff like that, I would sort of avoid it. And when I was a kid, I'm 40, about to turn 42, it wasn't really looked at as being an integral part of being an athlete. You know, you could get away with being a high school athlete and not, lifting weights and stuff. It was kind of part of the program, but not really like it is now. And so I just basically avoided it as much as I could. And then I ended up tearing my ACL my sophomore year in college playing basketball. And I had to do all this rehab in order to rehab my knee. And then I started going to the gym. And at this gym in Corvallis, Oregon, I went to Oregon State University. I always went at the same time, and I always saw this group there working out. And there was this guy who was really funny, just a hilarious guy. He would joke around with like everyone at the gym at the same time that he was training people. And I always thought it was really interesting the way that he worked with people, because a lot of it was like tapping into like almost spontaneously tapping into what motivates someone and getting them to work harder and get focused and stuff in a way that was fun and inclusive, because he would have a big group of at least 6, sometimes up to 9 or 10 people. And, over time, he would say hi to everyone, and I would say hi to him. And eventually he invited me. He was like, it seems like you're interested in what we're doing. Why don't you join the group? And I did. And that's like the first time in my life that I ever enjoyed exercise. And it was awesome. Like it was almost overtraining. Like I went 6 days a week for an hour and a half, and it was like, we just killed it. Like it was like working upper body and lower. You're working your entire body 2 times a week, like high rep, low weight, and then high weight, low rep, and just destroying everything. And I don't think it was necessarily like the best physical plan, but in terms of like showing up and being a part of something and learning a lot, particularly about the psychology of exercise and like athletics. It was really great because this guy he was an ex-NFL football player. He became a trainer of professional bodybuilders at the same time as Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then he was retired, and he was like 70, 75 years old when I knew him. And the guy looked amazing. He looked like he was 20, 25 years younger than he should. And the only way you could tell his age is because he would wear sunglasses. Like, he would wear sunglasses in the gym.
Yeah.
And then, like, after knowing him for like a year, I saw him with the sunglasses off, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is like, and there's a reason why he wore them, because he really looked like he was about 50. So anyway, I was just very inspired by this guy. His name's Ali McClay. He was my first mentor, and he really just kind of opened my mind to the fact that like fitness can actually be fun. Mm-hmm. Like, I knew intellectually that it could be beneficial, but I didn't, I was young and I didn't really see the negative impacts yet, because, my body could basically take a beating and be fine.
Yeah.
But I intellectually kind of knew, I should probably exercise. But then this was the first time I was like, wow, this is actually fun and I want to do it,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, that experience kind of inspired me to want to continue doing it myself. And then I decided to go to acting school. And once I got trained as an actor and moved to New York City, I was like, I need a day job that's going to be flexible. So personal training was the first thing that came to my mind. There was an Equinox across the street from my conservatory program, so I just started working there, and I really haven't stopped since.
Nice. So I don't know how it is in like New York for like certifications. So down in Georgia, you don't have to get a personal training certification to train at a gym. You can start training people, and then you can get your certification. But you could be under someone else's certification. Kind of like almost like a PA, like how a PA is underneath like a doctor's license and stuff like that. So that's the way it is down there. So did you get your certification first, then go to Equinox, or how did that work?
So actually, that's interesting, because I went to Equinox, and before you can actually start training people at Equinox, they put you through their in-house training thing. And so I was not certified when I started working there. I just had done all this work with Ali, and I kind of went in and I basically bothered the crap out of them. I went in like every week for like 2 or 3 months, and then eventually they were like, all right, kid, we'll give you a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably needed extra trainers because there's so much turnover, but I bothered them into it, And I had to pass this fairly comprehensive test. I mean, you had to like go through like the anatomy, the physiology, the way that, the body moves, and then you had to actually train the PT manager. And they would give you like 2 or 3 different scenarios, and you had to take them through it and show them the program that you created. And if they didn't think that it was good and you couldn't explain exactly why it was good, then you weren't going to be able to train people.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do that before I started training people. And then I think it was like you had 2 months or 3 months once you passed that test and started training people that you had to get certified with one of the national certs. And so it was like, I think when I first started, it was ACE, it was NASM, and it was NSCS or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
There were like 3 different ones.
Yeah.
You had to get certified in one of those after you had started training people for like 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very cool. Yeah, I got my AFAA certification. I mean, it's an easier cert compared to like, the higher ups like ACE and the rest of the guys. Like I pretty much did it in, I don't know, like a month or 2. Just like studied the book and everything, watched the videos and got it. So, but what have you seen? What do you think has changed from like when you first started as like, fresh personal trainer to now?
Well, I think the biggest thing that's different because I started like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So like there was no social media, like we didn't have cell phones where everything was getting recorded and stuff like that. And there really weren't any video workouts. Like the video workouts that were out were like VHS and DVDs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like the only ones that made that were ones that got picked up by a major company, usually with somebody that was reputable, and they made like a video for them when they were back. Now like anybody can do it, which I think is really cool in one aspect, but in another aspect, there's a lot of people out there that are training people online that really don't have any business doing it, or just don't have a level of expertise.
Yeah, I agree.
And, you can get away with it by just being confident. If you project confidence and you look good, people will believe you know what you're talking about, and that's not always the case. And so I think it can be dangerous. But on the other side of things, it's really cool that people have access to so much material. You know, there's like so much knowledge out there and information that if you really want to spend a little extra time, you can learn so much of the stuff that I had to pay for. You know what I mean? Like to take classes and certifications. A lot of that information is free online.
Yeah.
If you just want to look for it. So I think in that aspect, it's really cool. Like you can have access not only the information, but like to like the best trainers and, you know, the best minds in the business. And a lot of the information is free.
Yeah.
So I think that's really neat. But yeah, on the other side of things, there's also a lot of other people out there, and everybody's trying to get into it. And the business just continuously getting flooded with new people, which I don't have a problem with competition. I just see like a lot of the fitness fads that are happening have to do with things that may be fun or may have they may have tapped into what gets people interested and what keeps people like having a good time, but like the science behind it and the ability to actually like pay attention to people so that they don't hurt themselves isn't there. You know, there's a lot of, for instance, like high intensity exercise classes out there that are teaching the average person exercises that the average person can't do. It might get them results if they do it with proper form consistently, but a lot of people aren't going to be able to do it with proper form consistently. And the platform that it's being offered on, there's really no way that even an excellent instructor can pay attention and modify it in the moment and keep that, you know, client safe.
Yeah.
So it's like really just a matter of time before somebody hurts themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I like to teach some people like Olympic weightlifting because we actually have like lifting platforms at the gym I used to work at, and out of like all the clients that I've had, I've only taught 3 people how to do the Olympic lifts. A lot of people know how to deadlift, like all that stuff. I could teach them that, but there's a lot of people that just weren't like coordinated enough to actually do the lifts that I like, especially the snatch, the clean and jerk, you know, and if they want to do it, we would literally spend like a week like on just that one movement, like, you know, not even the jerk, just like the clean and like where to lift off of, and like, and it like a lot of people did like it, especially the 3 people that did do the lifts did appreciate it and did love it. So I mean, but like it's like you said, it's some people can't do the stuff that is prescribed in the workout, and so they just go do it. I've seen so much awful form, especially like people that don't have trainers and they're just, you know, working out themselves and like, you know, lifting their back up on a bench press and stuff like that. And it's just like, I kind of want to talk to them, but you know, they just sometimes they just don't even want to listen to you. They just want to do whatever they want to do. So
yeah, it's hard. I mean, some people, we all need advice to get better. And when somebody that knows more is there, it's obviously a great resource, but they got to be open to it.
Yeah. And
I think it's really responsible of you to, you know, not force something upon someone who isn't ready for it. Or even if somebody's like, I think that's one of the hardest things to do as a trainer, is because, you know, there's business to be had when people are excited about something. But if you know that what this person is excited about, they're not ready for, and you need to like take time to get them there, a lot of people don't want to take that time. They'll just be like, all right, you don't want to let me try this thing that I'm not ready for. I'll go find someone else who will. And maybe they'll find that person because, you know, the market is flooded with trainers that need business. But I think it's really responsible of you to not do that, to be like, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. I'm going to treat you proper form. And if it takes us a week to do it, you're going to be glad because you're not going to hurt yourself. I mean, I think we need to be like that more often. That's a great example of kind of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I love when they get their PRs too, because they get like super excited and they like just like jump up and down and like, you know, are like super happy. Even with like people that are, you know, doing regular lifts, like they haven't done this weight ever before. Like, you know, they squatted like maybe 5 more pounds and they're like super excited. That's the main reason, like why I did it. So like personal training, just because people lost like a boatload of weight from me. I have one client lost like 60 pounds, and you know, super excited, and you know, and just I love seeing people happy. That's the main reason why, you know, I think personal training is a good you know, good job to have.
Yeah, man, I feel the same way. I think that's really cool. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way exactly. Actually, like that's probably my number one reason for doing it myself and for wanting to do it with other people, is that like scientifically exercising makes your mood change. Like you see the world through a different lens. You create more good feeling hormones. You feel better not only emotionally, but also you have a better self-image. You feel more confident in yourself. You feel better inside of your body. You walk around the world like looking and feeling better. And if you're working with somebody who's really about functionality, you function better in the world. So it just increases your quality of life so much. I mean, I know that it's increased our quality of lives so much just by training, and you could see it in a client when they make progress, and you hear their stories about, oh, I just did this thing that I had a client the other day. He just started riding his bike, and he's like telling me about, he loves doing like these sprints on his bikes. And he's like, oh, I was able to do 5 of these. I could only do 1 2 weeks ago. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like maybe people aren't all jazzed about doing sprints on their bikes, but like that's just one example of like being able to function on a level. Like this is a 50-year-old guy who hasn't ridden a bike in 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Who was huffing and puffing the first time he did it, and then was able to like go as fast as he could, and then slow it down and go as fast as he could again 5 times, which he probably hadn't done in 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
You made him feel like a kid is basically what he's saying.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So and there's no price you can put on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you have this program called Inspired Exercise NYC. So how did that come about, and like what is it?
So my program, I have a lot of different programs. I work one-on-one with people, and I also have a 90-day program that's basically all about teach my clients how to get lean, reduce stress, and find peace of mind in as little as 4 hours a week. It's an all-encompassing program, basically, that I put together through, like I said, I've been doing this 20 years, and I've sort of isolated the things that I think are really important within the personal training process and the training process in general that leads to the results that we're talking about. And just to kind of give you a little overview, there's like 4 major components, and the first one is customized coaching. So what that is basically, as compared to like what I feel like other people do and what I did in the beginning, is when you first meet with somebody, you do like a fitness assessment and you do like the goal setting thing, and I still do that, but I basically added a little bit more. Like I want to know what exercises people love and hate. I want to know like what locations they like and dislike, because and it kind of goes on and on from there. But basically, I want to get all this information about like where people like to work out, what they like to do, what they don't like to do, what it is that they've always wanted to do but never tried. And I want to take all that information and create an exercise program that's going to allow them the path of least resistance in order to be consistent and get the results they want. And the other thing that I kind of just left out, I just remembered, is figuring out like why someone wants to do something. Like, so someone might say, I want to get a 6-pack and look good in a bathing suit, and that's like their superficial goal. But why do they want to get that 6-pack? And why do they want to do that? And just keep asking why until you get to the bottom of it. So, like I might want to get, like I said, like a 6-pack or a flat stomach or put on 5 pounds of muscle, but why do I want to do it? So that I can be healthy and be there for my kids and run around and play with them and not hurt myself, and I think like more often than not, what happens is we're not motivated to exercise, and so we need to find motivation to get off the couch or, to get off the computer or to make time and make it happen. And so in those times that happen a lot, we have to know what motivates us so that we can tap into it. And I, as a trainer, want to know what motivates you so that I can tap into it as well in the way that I communicate with you and the way that I motivate. So I take a lot of time in the first session, like an hour to an hour and a half, to learn as much as I possibly can about somebody. And then once I get all that information, I'll do the physical assessment and all that as well, but I'll also put together a program from all of that that's more form-fitted and customized for this client. And I will basically take that shell of what I create in the beginning and constantly be refining it throughout the process, so that hopefully right away it's ideal and it works, and then all we have to do is progress it over time. But a lot of times it's pretty close, and I need to take feedback and then morph it a little bit more and tweak it and tweak it and tweak it, so that it just gets better and better as I'm progressing it. And when I say tweak, I mean differently as to progressing the workouts. I mean in terms of like just getting the physical results and progressing the weights and the exercises. I mean, like progressing, like, is something actually an enjoyable experience. And basically what I mean by that, an example is like, some people love the gym, right? Some people love going to their gym because it's a great community. They get to hang out with their friends. They feel like there's just like a lot of high energy. There's high energy music, and they get the best out of themselves once they get to the gym, and it's a great place for them to exercise. Other people, they go to the gym and they feel intimidated by all these big people and this kind of meathead culture, and they're grossed out by the machines because they're not really kept as clean as they would like them to, and they just feel like that's the only place they can go to exercise, and so they do it, but they really don't like it. So like, those people probably shouldn't be exercising at the gym or at that gym that they're going to. They should probably find a place that's more fun. Like, I know for me, I like my gym, right? I like the community aspect, and I like the competition, that comes from being around a bunch of other people that are like really working hard, and that gets me motivated. But also, if I'm in the gym for too long, that meathead culture kind of aggravates me and grates on my nerves, if I'm honest, and I can only take so much of it before it's just like makes me angry and I don't want to be around these people. Mm-hmm. So I know for myself that if I can go to the gym and get like 2 to 3 good workouts a week, that's about my threshold for how long I would ideally spend at the gym. But I also know about myself that I love working out outside. Like, I love breathing fresh air, I like being in the sun, and I just like, being outside and exercising and being active. So I mix it up, I'll ideally do 2 to 3 workouts in the gym and 1 to 2 workouts outside, most of the time. And then if I get really sick of the gym and I need to tweak it, I'll switch that around. I'll do 2 to 3 outside and 1 to 2 in the gym. And I constantly kind of do that with myself so that I'm always inspired by where I'm going, mm-hmm. and constantly keeping it new and exciting. And I think that's really important because, kind of like what I said earlier, consistency is the number one variable. And if you're in any way, shape, or form can create a path of least resistance, a path that's like in any way enticing and fun to go down, it helps you to be more consistent. And I think that all people need is an opportunity to quit. All people need is an opportunity to take a short break that turns into years, And so trying to force them into a direction where they don't want to go is, I think, a surefire way to get them to quit in the near future.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I do. The customization is a big focus, and then I really focus on hormone boosting workouts. Those are really important in my mind because, like you said, people feeling good, I think, is the number one thing that you want to get out of the exercise. Yes, you want to get the physical results, but feeling good is really important. And when you can work out at a certain intensity level, you're going to produce more good feeling hormones. You're going to feel good, which is great. And then, by the way, if you work out at that intensity level, you're also going to get better physical results. So those are going to go along with it. And so I'm really a big believer in that. Because I think a lot of people go into exercise like I did, thinking that it's torture and misery and makes you not want to commit to it. But if you can stick it out past those first 3 to 4 weeks and you see that switch where your body adapts and you start producing more good feeling hormones, and you're like, wow, even if I don't particularly like the exercises, I feel amazing afterwards. You start to connect exercise with feeling amazing afterwards, mm-hmm. as opposed to being torture. And that's the click that I'm always trying to create, so that once people get to that point, I feel like it's so easy for the momentum to start going in the other direction and to start building consistency that lasts over time.
Very cool.
So those are like the 2 major things that I do. But then I believe that having a morning ritual is really important, because what I find is that, especially in the beginning, the way that you start your day and the way that you feel has a lot to do with whether you're willing to go through those first 3 to 4 weeks of building a new habit. And so what I do with a lot of my clients, especially the ones that are starting with exercise from the beginning and have an issue with consistency, is I start them with creating a form-fitted morning ritual. And it doesn't have to take a long time, but it's really just like figuring out what they respond best to. Like if it's a type of, for example, meditation, do they respond better to silent meditation or sound meditation or movement? But putting in some kind of just a couple minutes every morning to get them in touch with their breathing, in touch with their bodies, in touch with their intentions, so that they can then take that and that's like the first thing that they do in the morning. So that's like the foundation of your day. And it doesn't have to take a long time, so that like throughout the day, if you start to get disconnected from yourself, you have this little ritual that you can come back to. And it's customized. So, if somebody needs to do something that other people don't see because they're in the office, I can do that. If they're working from home and it doesn't matter, I can also do that. But the most important thing to me is that people start off like that. And I've seen it. It seems like, it's just 5 minutes, but the people that do it, I've seen with consistency have better results and are more consistent over time.
No, I agree. I think if, like you said, like start like a habit in the morning time just to, warm up and just everything just starts right off from the day, starts the day off just right when you wake up in 5 minutes, So unlike me, it's like my 5 minutes of waking up is having my 5-year-old wake me up and say, Daddy, I think the dog pooped in the house, and you're just like, oh my gosh, just then finally like you go downstairs, take a breather, he puts on the TV, and then I just I drink water, have a coffee, just sit on the couch for like a little bit, and then wait till my daughter wakes up, just kind of like ease into it a little bit. So, but before the whole COVID thing happened, I'd wake up like super early, get everything ready to go to the gym, and then just take my pre-workout and ready to go and do my workout and then come back home. So but it's like you got to kind of adapt, I think, to certain situations, like especially with the whole COVID stuff. Like people are working from home with their kids and it makes it more stressful. So like at least 5 minutes of breathing throughout the day, can help.
Absolutely, man. And I'm glad you said that, because a lot of my clients, I'm basically training 95% of my clients online now because of the COVID thing, and like the other 5% I'm just like waiting until it's over. But yeah, and it's been a big thing because most of my clients have kids. So figuring out a way for them to have a morning ritual that they can do with the kids waking them up in the morning is kind of tricky sometimes. But what I found is if you do stuff with your kids, because kids want to be involved in everything, depending on how old they are, they're actually like willing participants sometimes. So I've included like kids with a couple of my clients' morning rituals, and it's worked, whereas in the beginning they were like, I can't do this, my kids are getting in the way, it's just it's more stressful than it is helpful. So I was like, all right, well, let's try including your daughter in this. And then she was like, oh, this worked really well, and she's actually calmer, and I got her to eat breakfast easier. It's like, this works.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter, I think, of trial and error and figuring out what works best for you. And sometimes the first time that you try something doesn't work, but if you keep at it and you get creative, I think there's always a way.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. So what kind of tools do you use for your online programming? Do you use like Excel spreadsheets, like Zoom conferences at all, or like how does it work for, with your clients?
So the ones that I meet one-on-one, I do like FaceTime or Zoom. Just depends, like everyone kind of has their preference. Some people I use WhatsApp. I think there might be one other, but I just kind of let them be like whatever's easiest for them. And I kind of present like a bunch of options, but most of the time FaceTime. And then when I do the group classes, I do them on Zoom. And then when I create videos, which is part of my 90-day program, like I do some in person, but then I also create videos of the workouts. I just do them myself, and then I send them the videos so they can use it whenever they want.
Okay.
So that's how I do it.
Okay, very cool. And I've seen you posted some of your videos on Instagram and stuff like that, like your home workouts, and that they're really, really good, very detailed, and you pretty much show like what's supposed to happen, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. I really try to do that. I think that's the most like really important. Like I feel like it's a real responsibility of ours as like fitness professionals to not only like show someone how to do something and tell them how to do it, but to be really detailed and teach them how to do it the right way. So I pride myself on doing that. And I think it's our responsibility, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that don't do that, and they get a lot of followers, and I would imagine a lot of those followers hurt themselves.
Yeah. So since about like talk about bad trainers, what have some horror stories that have you actually had for like seeing other trainers do stuff to their clients?
Oh man, I've seen so many things over the years. The biggest, well, I don't know if this is the biggest one, but this is one of the terrible ones. When I worked at Equinox, it's very much about sales. They put a lot of pressure on you to hit your numbers, and there was a guy that worked there, I'm not going to name, but he was an amazing salesperson. Like this guy, like it typically takes trainers, at least at the gym I was at, like 2 to 3 months to get off the floor, which means you work on the floor and you put weights away for like minimum wage until you get enough personal training hours per week that it's a full-time job, and then you get to come off the floor. And it would typically take trainers 2 to 3 months, sometimes up to 6 months to get off the floor. This guy got off in like a week. I mean, it was like miraculous. Like nobody knows how the hell he did it, but you know, if you saw him interact with people, you get he's like an incredible salesman. The problem is he was not a very good trainer. Like he really believed in straight-legged deadlifts, heavy deadlifts for everyone. Like this was his staple exercise, and he could talk anybody into doing it. And to make a long story short, he ended up hurting a couple people, and even though he had this massive amount of clients after having really only trained people for like 2 months, he got fired as a trainer and kept on as like one of the membership advisors that signs people up because they wanted to use his, you know, skills as a salesperson without hurting people. Well, I accumulated some of his clients, and I had a client who had 2 herniated discs in his back, one of them recently. And he was so convinced by this guy who had told him how important stiff-legged heavy deadlifts were to his success, you know, in his exercise program, that he had to do it. And I was like, listen, man, you're going to end up herniating, you're going to end up re-injuring your back, probably going to end up having to go to the hospital, and you're going to have surgery if you do this. I'm almost guaranteeing you. And I'm not going to allow you to do that while I'm training you, because then I'm going to feel responsible, and you know, I don't want you to get hurt, and I certainly don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm hurting someone knowingly. And this guy argued with me so much, and we ended up like parting ways because he wanted to work with someone who would allow him to do heavy, stiff-legged deadlifts. So that's one horror story that I'm like, I don't know if he ended up hurting himself or not. Like I didn't like keep up with him after that. I just kind of like gave him my spiel and told him, but it's also like, I kind of say that because it's the power of charisma. You know, like it's a lot of people that are very charismatic, and they do really well in this particular, I mean in all industries, but in this particular industry a lot. And you know, I think you have to like use common sense and also like think about the situation a little bit, because if you just go with someone simply because you get, you know, you just are, what's the word, like taken by their personality and charm, and you don't really look into, you know, the science behind it and their credentials, and if they're, you know, really have the credentials to back up everything they're saying, then you might get taken for a ride. And in this industry, that means you're probably going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of like trainers actually like hurt people before, and it's frightening. Or they do a workout, and I'm like, really shouldn't do that with that person. They're like, because I had one guy, he had a back injury, and the person was doing twisting motions with his like back, and like wrecked his back again. And so it was like him and I were like working, and he was telling me like what he did before, and I'm like, why did he even do that with you? Like, what were you thinking? And so he was like very timid of like personal, like going back to personal training, because like he just didn't want to throw his back out again.
Yeah, and that's so common. I mean, I have a friend who's a massage therapist, and he does a lot of corrective massage, and he gets a lot of people who injure themselves doing activities, and a lot of times those people injure themselves with trainers or in exercise classes with an instructor. And he recommends me because we have this rapport, and I'm good at dealing with people with injuries and stuff. But you hear the stories of how people hurt themselves, and like, look, people get injured doing physical activity. People hurt themselves doing it. You know, I hurt myself exercising at least a couple times a year. And, you know, I've learned over time not to push it too much. And I've also learned over time when to recognize that I get to that point that I need to stop. And it may take a few times before you realize that, especially if you're a competitive person. And you can still hurt yourself doing things absolutely correctly, you know, so that is part of it. But if you do things that your body's not meant to do, or your body's not ready for at a really high intensity level with terrible form, it's almost like a guarantee you're going to hurt yourself. And that's what you hear, a lot of stories. And those are the stories that I hear when I meet with new clients. I'm like, I paid this guy $125 an hour, and this is what he told me to do. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. A lot of my clients that I've had have seen what I've done with my clients, like the clients like working out before they even sign up for personal training, or they've had like, you know, like you have a good rapport with somebody and they would like talk, like, you know, say, hey, you should train with Tom, or like, you know, people at the front desk would say, like, you know, they would ask the front desk, who would you train with? And they'd be like, oh, Tom, definitely. You know, you need to know like what you're doing. So, and you just can't like go off like the seat of your pants, which is insane. That some trainers actually do that. So,
yeah, I mean, totally, man. I think, especially in the beginning when you're working with clients, you have to really like think it through. I mean, maybe once you work with somebody for 6 months to a year and you really know them and you know where they need to go and how their body works, you can kind of like improvise in the moment based on the plan you've already created. Mm-hmm. But you got to get to that point first.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you plan your content in like all like the training plans, like throughout the week for your clients? Like, how do you schedule that? Is it like all on Sunday, or, you know, how do you manage it?
Oh, you mean just like schedule? Well, most of my clients have like their regular time.
Okay.
So, but like I live in New York, and like most of my clients are business people that fly all over the place for business. So like their schedules get tweaked and they have events and stuff. So every Sunday, that's what I do. I just kind of check in with them and I'm like, are we good for these times? And if they're like, oh, I have, you know, traveling this week, can we do this? I'll rearrange it, and then hopefully by the end of Sunday night or Monday morning, I have it kind of set for the week. Mm-hmm. But it kind of depends, you know, like some weeks it's like exactly the same, and then other weeks it's vastly different, just depending, especially when it comes to like school breaks and stuff like that, people traveling for vacation almost all at the same time. But, you know, I've gotten used to it. You know, for the most part, I basically know that I'm going to have the same amount of sessions every week. It's just a matter of like when they happen.
Yeah.
And I have to just maintain flexibility.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, I definitely hear you. So, do you have like, have you ever had like a burnout with like personal training at all? Like, you just needed to take a week off, or did you have something like that before?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's ironically like, I mean, New York City, being a trainer in New York City and going from house to house is just like insane. You know, it's like, I have to say, like, right now, I'm like probably the least stressed that I've been. I mean, I know COVID is stressful, and like, you know, I'm, knock on wood, like, I'm healthy and my family's healthy and everything, and that is a worry, but like the daily stresses of like riding the subway that's never on time, and then you get late for one client and you're running late for all the rest, and these are people that are on a tight schedule, so they don't like it when you're 5 or 10 minutes late. And then, you know, getting on my bike and riding like 30 to 45 minutes from client to client, you know, by the end of the day, I'm exhausted. It's stressful. And I have to constantly do stuff. Like, I have to make sure I take Sunday off, and I have to make sure I do therapeutic things at least once or twice a week, like get a massage or go lay in the, what do you call it? The float, like the saltwater float.
Yep.
Like, I'll go take a restorative yoga class. I have to do something like that. And if I don't, I like start to get like overwhelmed every week, just because it's just like so demanding.
Yeah.
The travel schedule between. It's been different now because I'm not traveling at all between clients. I'm just online, and it's far less stressful. I can handle a lot more, I feel like, now than I could when I was just like flying around the city all day, you know, dealing with public transportation and timelines. But yeah, and then in general, I have to travel. Like, if I don't go on like a 2-week vacation at the end of the summer and try to get out of this, you know, New York City, like in January or February for a little while, I start to feel it. Because you're just like, it's not just training. It's like being here. It's like concrete jungle.
Yeah.
There's like no nature.
Yeah.
And it's everyone's running around stressed out. So you just get wound up being here, you know, so you got to get out like once every 3 or 4 months. And I think for an extended period, at least twice a year.
Yeah.
At least for like 10 days to 2 weeks. So yeah, I get overwhelmed all the time. And it's just a matter of like, you know, making sure that I plan for it and making sure that I take care of myself constantly and check in with myself and know what I need, you know?
Yeah. So are you planning to do more online, or you just want to, like, after when COVID's over, you're going to still go to like, you know, maybe do some in person and more online? Have you ever thought about doing it that way, or?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like 2 weeks before COVID happened, I decided to do an online training, program with my previous fitness manager at Equinox, who I got along with really well. Her name is Nicole Spencer. She's really cool. And she actually, I think it was Georgia. I think she married her husband. She went to a small town in Georgia and started a boot camp. And the boot camp did really well. She sold the brick and mortar. She got divorced. She moved to Asheville, North Carolina. And I think she created an online business, and that did well. And then she just started a coaching business about 6 years ago, where she coaches fitness professionals on how to make their brick and mortar and their online business more successful. And I saw her stuff and had been seeing it for years, and I never really reached out. And then I got to this point where, like you said, I was burned out from running all over the city. And I wanted to kind of start to bring my business more online because I see the opportunity there. I'm probably a little late to the party, but whatever.
You're never late. You're never late.
Exactly. It's still going on.
Yeah.
And I started taking this class with her like 2 weeks before COVID happened. And then it happened. And it's sort of like I had already laid the groundwork for bringing my business online and starting this online program and all this stuff. And it kind of seamlessly moved in. And, thank God it happened. Like I really intuitively just felt like it was the right thing. I actually even thought about pushing it off until like 3 months later when the next one started. And I was like, nah, you know what? Something's telling me I need to do this. And then lo and behold, it was like the perfect timing.
Nice.
So yeah, I basically want to make all of my business online. And I'm not opposed to meeting people in person. I like it, but I don't want to be in a situation where I'm racing all over the place all day. I'd much rather be working with the bulk of my clients online, and then, maybe at some point have a location where I can meet people, although I'm a little bit split over whether I want that overhead or not.
I hear you. So obviously you have a crazy busy schedule. So how do you manage to stay fit while, all this like coaching and stuff, and all the running around?
Just got to do it, I mean, it was easy, actually. One of the perks of running around the city all day is that I was on my bike for like an hour and a half, 2 hours every single day. So I was getting like tons of cardio. And then, I was at gyms all day. So sometimes I could just stick around and work out. Other times, I'd just like pop by a gym and get I get, there's so many different gyms in New York City. You can get like a day pass. It's like $10 or $15. Sometimes it's free. So I would just pop into gyms, and then I have a gym by my house that I'm a member at. And if it so happens that I'm home during the time that I have a break, I'll pop in there. But I always find a way to do it. It's like, I know for myself, kind of going back to what you were saying about getting burned out. If I don't exercise, I'm going to get burned out. That's my way to take all of the frustration and stress and put it into something. And then I know at the end of it, I just feel good.
Yeah.
And so it's like my therapy in a lot of ways. It's a huge part of, anyway, my own therapeutic process. So I just make it a priority. And some days I have 20 minutes, some days I have 2 hours, and it really depends. But I make it happen no matter what,
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. So obviously, do you have any goals later on down the road that you want to achieve at all for your clients or just yourself, or,
I mean, for myself, it's really about just maintaining and continuing to grow and stay inspired. For my clients, it's kind of the same thing. But I guess if there's a specific thing I'd like to do, 2/3 of our population in the United States is overweight or obese. And so much, our healthcare has become this huge thing. And I think that, the cost of healthcare is so expensive because so many people are unhealthy. And I feel like not only that, but the quality of life. We don't even know that our quality of the average person doesn't even realize how much their quality of life is affected by being overweight or obese and unable to do the things that they really want to do and unable to be active to the point where they create these hormones that make them feel better and relieve stress and so on and so forth. Most of us are just gluttonous and drinking too much, not getting enough sleep, and functioning because, we're adaptive creatures. But functioning and flourishing are very different. And I really want to be able to spread that message to a wider audience. And I'd really like to somehow get involved with, like offering what I do to underprivileged communities and to kids. I think, when kids come from communities with money, which I work with a lot, it's very helpful for anybody. And I like working with these people, but they have access, There's a lot of kids out there that don't have access. There's a lot of people out there that don't have access, and they can't afford to hire me at the rates that I, typically offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really like to create a program that allows everybody to have access to this, to like really learning about themselves and figuring out how they can make fitness a real thing in their lives, and taking pride in it and enjoying it and making it a staple, because I feel like it'll change so much. That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure that out. Part of me creating this online program and using this platform is because of that. And I think this 90-day program that I have is a really good first step, because it's very affordable. It's like, I think pretty much anyone can afford it if you have a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. Have you ever heard of Ryan Fisher before?
No.
So he's a former CrossFit athlete. Now he has his own gym up in over in California, and he has multiple he has a gym, and he has multiple online programs, and it only costs $20 a month, because
cool.
And his workouts are insanely, people get sore all the time. They don't he's not there to absolutely throttle people every single time. He just wants them to move. He has a sweat one, a dumbbell, a typical CrossFit one. So you should definitely look at what he does. I mean, for $20 a month, and you get any program you want, and he has ebooks too, so that might be someone to look out to, and he's very personable. He has it looks like a turtle shell for abs, so he's just this jacked dude. But you definitely should check it out. I'll send you this information on Instagram. So
that'd be amazing, man. Yeah, I'd love to check that out.
Yeah, his stuff's amazing. He gets messages all the time, and it's killer. And plus he has his own podcast too, which is, I learned a lot from him too. So, but
that's so cool.
Yeah,
I gotta investigate more. I mean, that's something that I really have not done, is investigated a lot using online social media and stuff.
Yeah. So do you listen to podcasts at all?
No. I mean, I'm not open to it or haven't tried. I just don't really, for some reason. I listened to the Bulletproof podcast.
Okay.
I thought that was interesting for a little while, and then I just kind of got disinterested. And every once in a while, a friend of mine will send me a podcast, a fitness-related podcast, and I'll listen to it for a specific thing that they know that I'm interested in, and I'll find it really interesting, and then I'll just stop. I feel like for me, podcasts are long, and it's hard for me to find 45 minutes to an hour or an hour and a half to really sit with something, because I'm always moving. And the time that I do have when I have a block like that, I'd rather go to the gym and work out.
Yeah.
And I'd rather blast some music than listen to a podcast. So it's I just have to kind of maybe do it in smaller chunks or something. I'm not sure, but it hasn't been the most ideal way for me to download information,
Yeah. I mean it's tough for you, because you're riding your bike everywhere, and it's you don't have a long enough time to listen to the podcast for the whole time, like you just said. But for me, that's all I listen to when I'm in the car. I don't because obviously I drive from work back and forth, and I don't listen to music I don't really listen to music anymore, except for we're outside in the backyard. But I've been geeking out on podcasts for years, just for such a long time, and I've learned so much for personal training wise just from those podcasts. So I'll definitely throw some podcasts at you just to for you to listen to.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I think that's part of it. If I could weed through the stuff that I'm not interested in,
and
just be oh, this one's good, I'd probably listen to it more.
Yeah, I listen to Gary Vee once in a while, and obviously he spits out the same thing over and over and over again, but some of them look interesting, but the rest I just pretty much delete. So,
okay.
But all the other ones, all the other podcasts I have that I listen to are super informative and stuff. So I mean, definitely, and they get the best guests on there, the top of the line, top of the food chain for the fitness professionals, and they just talk about what they've seen in studies and all that stuff, and how they implement their workouts to their clients, or Olympic athletes, or CrossFit athletes, or anybody pretty much.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, if I can find time, I will do it.
Yeah.
And especially if you recommend it to me, I think like part of it is I don't put the effort in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's just, I don't know. It's like social media was to me for so long. I knew it was there.
Yeah.
I knew it was available, and I just never took advantage. And now maybe this is the next thing I need to kind of incorporate.
Yeah. So, so we're getting close to the end. So, do you have like a favorite book that you like to read, or like to give people that like is very informative?
Whew, that's interesting. You know what? I don't know if I really have a favorite book. There's a book on Zen that I really like, that I've been like kind of revisiting. It's like The Art of Being a Beginner.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I have it right here. I forget the exact title. I found it. It's called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and it's like about Zen practice, but I think it's like a really interesting book. I really like books on meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And and there's a bunch of different books that I will recommend to people, but for this one, I don't know. I just really like it because it's there's like a short lesson, like a 1-sentence kind of thing, and then there's like 2 or 3 pages about it, and like kind of like where this lesson comes from, what it really means, how it applies to your life in a really practical, simple way. And I just find like reading one of those in the morning, or reading one of those when I have like 10 minutes, it just makes a huge impact on the way that I see the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think anything you can do to make yourself feel more present and aware is helpful. And so, yeah, I really like this book. The other book that I really like, what's the one? I think it's called like Searching for Superman or something like that. It's all about...
I've never heard of that one before.
Oh, it's all about flow states. I have that one too, but it's like in the other room. I won't run out and get that one. But it's a book that's all about like flow states and how you create flow states. And
okay.
I find this, I kind of nerd out about this, but it's like about human potential and how like basically athletes and people in any profession, when they're at their highest level, are in a flow state.
Yep.
Where it's like they've accessed their subconscious and it's not really happening on like they're just going along for the ride in the moment, and everything slows down, and they're just able to function at a level that's like exponentially higher than when they're in a normal state. And I just find that to be fascinating, So yeah, I like reading stuff like that because there's a lot of athletes that are now using this. It's like part of the sports psychology movement, and I think it's also part of like enjoying your life, is to figure out like what is it that you do that allows you to get into a flow state, because we all have those things. And I think like if people can start to think about exercise and being active from that point of view, it also makes it easier. It doesn't have to be this like idea that you have. It can be whatever you actually enjoy can be your door in, and then you can kind of like take that door in and make the most out of it. And I think that's what that book in a lot of ways talks about. So yeah, those are like 2 books that I really enjoy that kind of came to me right now.
All right. I'm always interested in meditation. Actually, one of my high school friends, I'm actually going to get her on the podcast. I think next week maybe, or whenever, but she's big into meditation, and she's like a personal certified life coach and stuff. So we're going to be talking a lot about like the meditation side and like how people can hopefully get into that, like, Zen, mindset, pretty much just the flow. So yeah. I'm really interested in that one. So, okay. So the last question, actually 2 last questions. Sorry. So what would you tell a trainer when they first start out in the business?
First start out in the business? I mean, in terms of like how to go about it, is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like what should they expect, or what, like,
Well, I think there's a lot of ways to get in the business, and I really think it depends on someone's background and like how much experience they have before they become a trainer. But ultimately, I think like passing a test and getting certified sort of is a benchmark for like how much information you have. Like you have the basic information, you understand it intellectually. But I think like working with a lot of different people and getting the experience of like how you apply that information with different types of people and how you communicate that information with different types of people so that they can hear it, and the types of motivation that you use, and also being able to listen to different types of people. Because some people, it's easy to listen to them. Mm-hmm. And some people, they're not so easy to listen to. And you have to kind of like continuously kind of be flexible and communicate, and then know when to draw a line and when not to. And I just think there's a lot of things that go into being a really good trainer, and you constantly have to be like pushing yourself to get better. And I think one of the best ways to do that, I don't particularly like working at gyms, from the point of view of like how financially lucrative it is. Mm-hmm. But I think like it's a really great place to go to a busy gym and say, I'm just going to be here for a year and I'm going to get the most out of it. Because you can train a lot of people, and you can watch like 30 to 50 other trainers train a lot of other people, and you can pick their brains, and you can work out with them when you both are off, and you can learn their styles and see how different people respond to different things, and just learn an insane amount in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. And then when you feel like you've got a good handle on it, then you can kind of go off and do your own thing and focus on making as much money as you can, because I think it's a long game thing. I mean, this is just me. I'm kind of an old school guy, but I feel like a lot of people, and particularly in our culture right now, it's all about short-term gain. But I think the thing is like fitness is a long-term thing. The goal is to be fit for your whole life. And if you're going to do that, you have to be able to train somebody in that way. Mm-hmm. And that takes a level of expertise that is far higher than getting someone in shape in 2 or 3 months and then they just fall off the horse and that's it. Like, you need to be able to keep them healthy, to keep them inspired, to keep them motivated, and keep them showing up and progressing over the course of time. And I think that takes a little bit more time to learn how to do that. And I would say if you invest 1 to 2 years in the beginning to really learn your craft and, figure out ways of getting by, and I would share, tricks that I've learned on how to like make a living. But I think know that you're going to take a hit in the beginning and pay your dues so that over time you can make more money and stay in it longer and actually get the results for your clients that they want. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I would say.
Awesome. Now, where can people reach you on social media, or like, your email address or whatever?
So on Instagram, I'm at Inspired Exercise NYC. My Gmail account is inspiredexercisenyc@gmail.com. And then my Facebook is just Erik, Erik, Potempa, Potem as in Michael, P as in Paul, A.
All right, awesome. Well, dude,
and my website, sorry.
Oh, yeah, go for it. I don't want to cut that off.
The website is inspiredexercise.nyc.
Awesome. Very cool. So, Erik, dude, thank you so much for being on my podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you. And, I definitely look forward to talking to you again later on down the road.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
All right. Have a good one.
All right, man. You too.
Hey, thanks you very much. Oh, did I cancel you?